the city of Philly, where the birds take flight. Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Tone and Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Broad Street lights. Dashing like a running back, hitting every play. 9 guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry.
Welcome back to your Eagles off-season show. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. I'm joined by none other than the man, Coach Markus Thomas from Pro Fan Talk. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to both channels. I repeat, we are live on 2 channels. We're live on Chalk It Up Sports, and we're also live on Pro Fan Talk. And my man, Coach Markus, just passed 7,000 subs, so make sure you guys give my brother some love. Make sure you guys continue to add on. I'm super grateful to have him in the building as always. Markus, how you feeling, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. A lot of stuff going on. Still got Eagles news coming. The WNBA started this week. Got drama with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese already. RG3 throwing his name in the mix. It's a lot, bro. A lot.
Very weird comment by RG3, if you ask me. Very weird.
I was like, and it was. Let me, because I try to tread carefully with this subject, but it is very inflammatory when you trying to tell a black woman what she should or shouldn't think,
or how she should and shouldn't feel.
And if you ever watch his videos, you know who's sitting in the background. And just the optic of that.
And that's why it always looks funny to me, because I'm like, RG3, brother, you complain so much about this narrative about you, right? You complain so much about it, but then you inflame it. You add on to it. So it makes me feel like he kind of gets off on it. Because look, let's be honest about this, right? Well, let's add context. Before we get into our Eagles talk, let's talk about this real quick. Angel Reese went up. She was wide open for a layup. She went up or she attempted to go up. Cece, Caitlin Clark, she gave her a hard foul.
And it wasn't even it was one of those stop the play fouls.
No, exactly. It was, it was a hard foul though. It was well, we know the context of the foul, but it was a hard foul nonetheless. And we've seen people, no matter what sport. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So after the foul, everybody saw, Caitlin, Angel Reese reacted.
Angel Reese got up.
She was angry. She felt like it was excessive. She felt like it was over the top. You know what I mean? And she stepped to her about it. Like any other sport, it's people step to each other, and then CC walked away, and they break it up, and it doesn't amount to anything, right? But back to basketball. RG3 decided to post and say, you can't tell me that Angel Reese don't hate Caitlin Clark, like that venom, that energy. You can't tell me that she doesn't. You can't tell me she doesn't hate Caitlin Clark. Like he took it to a level that I wasn't even thinking about. Right?
And did you watch the whole? Did you see his whole thing? Because it was a 20-minute. It's bad when you got to make a 20-minute video about your tweet.
Yeah, I didn't even know he made a video about it, but I know I saw the tweet, and I even replied to it. And honestly, real quick before you cook, Markus, my whole thing is, well, I have 2 points. One, I think it's interesting that in this women's sport, the WNBA, we have a hard time just watching it as a sport. And we always tend to attach our own microaggressions or our own politics or just our own emotions to it in a way that we don't do with male-dominated sports.
Correct.
And I think we see guys take hard fouls all the time in the NBA. We see guys take excessive hits in the NFL and the NHL. We see that all the time. And Andrew Reese's reaction isn't an anomaly. We've seen guys take a hard foul in the NBA and they get up like, yo, what's up? Like, what's wrong with you? We've seen that so many times, hundreds of thousands of times in watching NBA games. In the NFL, we've seen guys, get a little extra on the tackles outside, outside the lines, and guys get up like, yo, what's up? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So Andrew Reese's reaction wasn't anything out of the sports norm. And then my second point is, who are you, not even as a man, but who are you as a person to try to tell me or try to tell anybody else what's on this other person's heart? You don't know this person. You never met this person. You never had a conversation with this person about the context of the situation. I think it's weird and it's inflammatory and it's just flat out ignorant to just try to incite.
It was very, and then he got his white wife in the background. Mm-hmm. And to me, I was like, that's just not a good look. You can play it or agree with it or disagree with it, but when first of all, he gets into the point in his video, in his 22-minute video, where he's talking about Angel Reese is getting up about to swing on her. And I'm like, she wasn't about to swing on nobody.
What?
At the very worst, she may have pushed her like they do. And I'm thinking, and immediately I was like, well, hold on. Because Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Cloud got into it, and they actually pushed each other. And then immediately after, everything was cool because I was on the court. It was about business. Yeah, and they squashed it. And I'm like, what makes you think that all of a sudden Angel Reese was going to swing on somebody? Yeah, you see that a million times, and that you trying to get in somebody's face to get it off. And half the reason why because in my opinion, I think she flopped a little bit. But that happens too. That ain't out of the ordinary.
It's nothing. It's nothing we don't see in sport.
Correct.
That situation was not an anomaly.
Not an anomaly. And she gets up at the very worst. She was going to get in Caitlin Clark's face. At the worst, maybe point the finger and all of that type of stuff. But again, to your point, we've seen it a million times. But to just come out and say, I have no doubt that she hates her. And I guess for me, when you use the word hate. Like, hold on, dude. Yeah. I was like, and I've been in this situation where I learned this as a kid. I remember running track when I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, right? And I was with this dude on my track team. Him and his family was from the city. Mm-hmm. So he had that edge to him, right? And I hear him talking to his dad. And afterwards, I'm like, yo, what you do? Your dad mad at you? He was like, nah. He was like, that's how he always talked. Had to learn that lesson right there, that just because that's not what I'm used to is not what I thought or what I think. So you got to put some context into the situation and understand that's not where you live. Mm-hmm. And I think RG3 just inserted himself in a way that he shouldn't have and just let it play out. And I think a huge problem with the not necessarily the WNBA, but women's sports in general.
The way it's covered.
The way it's covered, and the umbrella is, the reality is you got a lot of men trying to tell women how they should do, how they should play, how they should think, how they should feel. And it's like, that ain't gonna never work.
When in reality, men will never accept women telling them how the NBA should be handled, how guys should conduct themselves in the league. The bottom line, these are like, it shouldn't even be a man-woman thing. These are professional athletes, and in professional sports, things get heated. Simple as that.
How many times have we seen in our sport in the NFL where a receiver is cooking a DB? They down by 4 touchdowns, mm-hmm. right? Or even or let's flip it. The DB is cooking the receiver.
Guys get frustrated.
Get frustrated. You down by 4 touchdowns, and you finally get that pass interference call. And then what do? They don't want to get in the DB's face. Don't touch me. All of that type of stuff. It's the same stuff.
We don't start talking about does
they hate each other?
Does AJ Brown hate who's the corner in Washington, the new guy that they traded for? They got to it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you see my point. Like, it's like, does AJ Brown hate Jalen Ramsey, or it's just weird. It's just weird.
It's far from a situation like what was that dude's name?
Lattimore. That's Lattimore.
Lattimore. But I was thinking more. Think of Aqib Talib or
the Michael Crabtree Aqib Talib situation was crazy.
But what about even worse what was the dude from Tennessee? Finnegan?
Oh, Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson. That was a crazy situation too.
And they was throwing haymakers.
They was really bopping. You feel me?
Yeah, and it's just like the overall look of it. I was like, you ain't even have to say nothing, bro. And you certainly don't have to say. There is no doubt in my mind that she hates that. I was like, come on,
you know what that is though, right? It's
like,
a few things, but you know what that is from on his side of things. That's just him trying to drive engagement to his channel. He's not employed by any major network right now. And normally I don't like to get into things like that because I feel like RG3 is actually talented, and I feel like RG3 is actually good at what he does. I really enjoyed him on ESPN. I enjoyed him on College Game Day. I felt like he was somebody that really brought a flair and an excitement, and I just overall liked his view of the game. But
when you get on that podcast, you got
he's building this podcast of his. And there's moments where I'm like, okay, this is a good conversation. I like his perspective. But then when he taps into a situation like this, I'm like, bro, like it's almost like you can't complain about how people view you, especially when it comes to how you fit into Black culture. Like you can't complain about how people view you and then inflame that and add gasoline to that fire. You can't have it both ways. You can't.
Nah, you can't.
And in a situation like this, it just felt so unnecessary. It felt
yeah, that's the right word. Unnecessary.
It
like
felt
you could have took
forced.
that. You could have took that any direction you wanted to, but when you gonna tell somebody, like I have no doubt that they hate you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so by that logic, everybody in the NFL hates everybody else.
Yeah,
by that logic,
it's weird. And I'm telling you, it's a combination of two things. Why it's even a conversation. Obviously the dynamic between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, they're two of the most high profile players in the WNBA right now.
Yep.
And you know, they're women. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
They're women, and they're two of the most high profile players in their league. So that if it was two men in that situation, we would not be talking about hate. We wouldn't.
Nah,
let's call it what it is.
100%, we wouldn't. And you know what? I see you in there, bro, Claude. Shout out to Angel Reese because her post game presser, she gave the perfect answer. Dude, try to get her to talk about it. I don't want to say bait her because it was a legitimate question, right? It happened. You know, somebody gonna ask you about it.
Of course.
She said her quote was, "Basketball play, refs got it right. Move on," and then squashed it right there. Did nobody follow up? Nothing like that. I was like, "That's how you squash it." Now
I even like Caitlin Clark. I even like Caitlin Clark's answer. You know, you know, the intention was, you know, to stop the play. Everybody, anybody that watches basketball that knows that, you know what I mean? And look, like things get heated. I don't think it's
things get
look,
heated,
we don't
bro.
know what's on their hearts. We don't know what's on their hearts. Maybe there is something that's maybe there is some kind of energy that came from the college ranks, right? Who knows? We don't know. And my thing is we don't know. We don't know. Yeah. So we can leave it at that, man.
I'll even say this.
Do better, brother. Do better.
If Chicago gets a little payback in the next game, as long as it's on the court, fair play. Yeah. She got you one, you get her one. That's the way the game is played. Yeah, but just don't do because here's the only issue I had with Angel Reese. And I did a video about this, and I literally say this. You didn't have that energy for Alyssa Thomas when she slammed you on your neck, and that was a hell of a lot worse than what you just got from Angel Reese. Because that could have really hurt you.
And to your point about that, because I didn't see that play, but I'll take your word for it.
Caitlin Clark ain't about that smoke.
No, but that's what I was about to say. People know, and this goes beyond women, right? People know. People know. I'll put it in hood terms. And you heard this before. Everybody got picks.
Yeah.
Everybody got picks. Everybody know. Okay, I'll push that line. Some people, okay, I'll avoid that line. Everybody got picks. Now you got some people in this world who are just ruthless and they ain't got none.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
that have no line. You know who to step to, and you know who not to. Right. And you know if you step to a certain person, you better be willing to go all the way.
Yeah. But for the most part, everybody got picks. For the most part.
Yeah. So, and Caitlin Clark ain't that person. The only time I've seen Caitlin Clark actually step to somebody was last year against Seattle, when that girl Vivian's kind of hit her with she popped her in the chin. And Caitlin Clark like stepped to her. That's the only time I've seen her step to somebody. Because even last night with Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark was like, I don't want no smoke.
She walked off right away.
Yeah, she did.
So,
it was like, and it wasn't that serious. But on to the Eagles, bro. On to
the Eagles, man. So thank you guys for tuning in and bearing with us.
Yeah, man.
But I also think, but we talk Eagles, but also we love sports, and I think it's important to have these conversations as well. So, let's get into our Eagles talk. The schedule. The schedule has officially been released and
full schedule. Yeah, last time we talked, it was a couple of games.
Yeah. We had 4 games. We had the Cowboys game. We knew about the Chiefs game, the Bears game, and the Commanders game. And at the time, we didn't know when the Bears and the Commanders game would be played in terms of time.
Right.
But now we know. We got the whole schedule in front of us. Let's really break it down. So week 1, Cowboys on Thursday night. Week 2, Chiefs on Sunday. Week 3, Rams. Well, at Chiefs on Sunday. Week 3, home against the Rams. Week 4, on the road against the Bucks. Week 5, home against the Broncos. Week 6, on the road against the Giants on Thursday night. Week 7, on the road against the Vikings. Week 8, home against the Giants, and we got a bye week in week 9. Week 10, on the road against the Packers on Monday night. Week 11, Lions we're home against the Lions Sunday night. Week 12, on the road against the Cowboys. Week 13, home against the Bears on Friday. That's Black Friday. Week 14, on the road against the Chargers on Monday night. Week 15, home against the Raiders. Week 16, at Commanders on Saturday. Week 17, at Bills. And Week 18, home against the Commanders. So this schedule, I have a few thoughts on it, but I want to get your thoughts first. When you look at this schedule, what's your instant reaction, or what was your instant reaction?
I was like, you know what? I put this on Twitter. I thought about the meme where on the Dave Chappelle show when Rick James was jumping on the couch, F your couch.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I thought of. We ain't got no back-to-back home games. How the hell y'all gonna put us in Buffalo in week 17?
I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty Buffalo. That's pretty intense.
We might not even be able to get to the stadium. The way it's been rocking out the last couple years, where they got to call in the town to shovel out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I was like, yeah, y'all really. Now, granted, we're not the only ones with a
crappy
tough
travel.
Schedule.
Yeah,
I mean, I tell you what, man, the NFL they pulled the belt out to the NFC East, bro.
Did they?
Oh man, the Giants got it worse than we do.
It's as far as travel, right? And just
it's the schedule is crazy, man. And I'm like, what? I know we're gonna be on prime time, but between the Sunday nights, the Monday nights, and the Thursday nights, it's like, golly.
Yeah, ooh, yeah. I ain't gonna lie, man. The Giants, that's
Thursday night. Then we go at Minnesota, so that's not too bad. Then coming off the bye, we go Monday night. Then we go Sunday night, and it's not so much the days, like the Monday night to Sunday night, the way your schedule is. I mean, obviously they're professionals; they're gonna get used to it, but it's just I still don't think they should be playing on Christmas and all that type of stuff, but it is what it is.
The funny thing about it is when you look at it, the Eagles play on every day of the week except for Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday, I heard that, and I was like, yeah, they got us good. It's good. Yeah, and it's gonna be even worse because you already know it's gonna be a week 19 coming.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I will say, I do believe the bye week is
perfect,
reasonably placed.
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
The bye week is perfect. You have what is that? You have 8 games prior to the bye week. You have 9 games after the bye week. So
we basically dead middle.
Your bye week is dead in the middle of the season. So I'm pretty on board with that. I like that. You know, I don't like my bye week too late. I don't like it too early. That's a sweet spot to me.
And having said that, don't forget last year that was a blessing in disguise.
It was.
We had that bye week early.
Yeah.
That was a blessing in disguise.
When you got a new coaching staff and you got young players you're trying to bring along, and they battled some injuries in the early part of that season too.
Yes.
People forget, bodies started dropping around week 3, week 4. And then that bye week being at week 5 allowed people to get healthy.
That came in big time handy, especially after that trip to Brazil.
That part.
Like we needed that. We needed that. So
yeah, and I think that's probably why the league did that. The Brazil game, and then I'm trying to think. So yeah, the Brazil game. Then we're on the road against the Saints, and on the road against the Buccaneers. So basically, they had 3 road games to open the season and 1 home game that they lost. And then you get the bye week at week 5, and then everything just started, rolling downhill, falling into place. So it really gave. You're right. That bye week in week 5 was definitely a blessing in disguise. And I look at the schedule aside from the bye week. Another thing that stands out to me about it is the first 5 weeks of the season, you're playing against 4 playoff teams, and to take it to take it a step further, 5 of your 8 first opponents were playoff teams. So you got Chiefs, Rams, Bucks, Broncos, and Vikings who are all playoff teams. Obviously, Cowboys and Giants weren't, but I instantly say to myself, "Oh, the NFL, they're testing the Eagles early.
Mm-hmm.
They're testing them early."
Absolutely. And in the back of my head, I still think that there is some dark web conspiracy that they trying to get the Eagles busted up before the back half of the season, so the push to the playoffs will be a little bit less. That's just my Philadelphia former Eagles bias on what the NFL is doing, because they still got their favorites. They still want to see Mahomes back up there. They still, they love to see Josh Allen up there. You know what I mean? So, and it just hasn't happened yet, even though they done given them every opportunity.
They've given Josh Allen every opportunity. They've changed overtime rules for him. They've changed first down. They've changed first down rules for him. Now there's an automatic thing that now there's no more chain game.
Yeah.
Now first downs are going to be measured electronically.
Yep.
They changed rules for the brother. They changed and he's look, man. I don't want to turn this into a Josh Allen conversation because I actually like Josh Allen as a player.
I do too.
Him, how he plays in a vacuum. I like Josh Allen a lot. But when you start thinking about other variables outside of just him and how he hasn't been able to get it done, he hasn't been able to get over the hump. He could beat Mahomes any other day except for a playoff game. So what does that say about him? Nonetheless, though, the Eagles are being tested early. Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, Bucks, Broncos, and then I think week 6 to week 8 is probably the easiest stretch of the season. I'm honestly not. I look at the Vikings and I say to myself, paper tiger.
Yeah,
paper tiger. They made a lot of moves on the D-line. They brought in Hargrave,
and they got that young quarterback.
They made a lot of moves on the defensive line. They brought in Jonathan Allen. I think they also signed Hargrave, right?
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money on that interior of the defensive line. So, they got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison at receiver. They got TJ Hawkinson at tight end. I
like Hawkinson too.
Yeah, I do too. They got Aaron Jones at running back. So you look at the Vikings and you say, "Oh, this team can run with anybody." You look at that and you believe that
if their quarterback is good.
But I didn't believe in the Sam Darnold thing from day one. I don't care what stats said. I don't care what winning streak they was on. I didn't believe it from day one, and I was right not to. I'm saying it from the beginning. Sam Darnold was he was a paper tiger. He was somebody that was making you believe he turned the corner. But Sam Darnold, the moment you put him in a situation where he had to be, the chips were on the line, or whenever stakes were high, a la week 18 when and you're in, or I'm sorry, when and you get the conference.
Mm-hmm.
When you get the conference, he couldn't do that. Okay, it happens. All right, playoff game, win and you advance, survive and advance. Couldn't even do that. He lost both of those games. So
he lost both of those games, and
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I just had to check real quick because it kind of goes back to conversations we've had before. Sam Darnold, 6'3", nice arm. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
These are all of the quarterbacks that checked every box.
Height,
every
size,
box.
arm strength.
Yes. And they still couldn't get it done. Because and I remember saying this, Jalen's second year. And I was like, if Trevor Lawrence would have had Jalen Hurts' stats, Trevor Lawrence would have went to the Pro Bowl. But he didn't. And he never has. And well, he might have more passing yards, but at the end of the day, what's the playoff record? What's Justin Herbert's playoff record? What's Sam Darnold's playoff record? What's Josh Allen's playoff record? Because right now, and even though people are saying it, you got just as much rebuttal as you do praise for Jalen Hurts. Because if you could take Jalen Hurts' body of work, if you give it to Josh Allen, if you give it to Justin Herbert, even if you give it to Lamar Jackson, immediate Hall of Fame talk, because they've been to the Super Bowl twice. He's won one. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. All of those accolades, everybody wants to heap on everybody else and how good this person is, how good Justin Herbert is, and all of that type of stuff. And I think it's finally getting to the point where people are tired of talking about it. I know they talk about it in the media. The media heads are going to continue to talk about it, but the fan base and the wave of social media content and things of that nature have finally figured out that, well, maybe it ain't always somebody that's 6'5" and can throw the ball 100 yards in the air. Maybe
that's
it's
why
not
it was so important for Jalen when it was so important for Jalen.
So important.
Like Jalen winning that Super Bowl had so many implications.
Oh my God.
Overcoming the hype talk. And I mean, Russell Wilson wasn't a tall guy either, but you know,
I ain't even gonna lie. I was pulling for San Francisco to win the bowl when they lost. I was like, very much. Oh man, I wanted Brock Purdy to win that so bad in the worst way. Maybe
my personal bias was involved in that because
that part
I don't like San Fran. I don't like San Fran. So
I don't like San Fran, but I don't hate him. I don't hate him like I hate the Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? But I look at it from the standpoint of, and this is where my experience comes in. Anybody that's coming from a small school that everybody said that you couldn't, you wasn't supposed to be there. Let me be honest with you. That's why I don't dislike Tony Romo, because he came from what, Northern Illinois, and when he started his first game, them folks in Dallas was like, "Oh, who the hell is Tony Romo?" And,
no, you're on something.
And it's like sometimes people got to take their hands off and let it happen. Brock Purdy, if Brock Purdy would have been any other name and would have been 2 inches taller from another school, would nobody have a problem with what Brock Purdy was doing? And he probably would have got $300 million instead of $260.
To your point, when I take my Eagles colored glasses off and I just think about who those guys were slated to be and who they became.
Yes.
Again, when I take my Eagles colored glasses off and I look at it in a vacuum, all the reasons I love Jalen Hurts, those guys exemplify that.
Yes.
Right. Overcoming doubt, being undervalued or underrated, overcoming whatever expectations people had for you. Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, Tony Romo being undrafted, Jalen Hurts being asked if he was going to change his position when he got to college and fall into the second round, despite leading the Big 12. Or was it the Big 10? Is Oklahoma the Big 10 or Big 12?
I don't even know anymore.
I think Oklahoma's Big 10. Regardless, leaving his in Oklahoma, leading that conference in completion percentage and touchdowns and yards. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a grinder. He's a worker. So for whatever you think he lacks in arm talent or the height or just being the prototypical quarterback, it's for everything I love Jalen Hurts for, I should be able to appreciate Brock Purdy and Tony Romo for. And that's why I actually congratulated Brock Purdy on his contract, because it shows you that it doesn't matter where you start. It's how you handle the opportunity. So I have a lot of respect for Brock Purdy and what he's been able to cultivate in his situation. I even have respect for Tony Romo and what he was able to accomplish in his situation. I even got respect for Dak Prescott being a 4th round pick. You know what I'm saying?
Same thing. Did nobody think Dak was going to be any good?
Yeah. Again, when I take my Eagles colored glasses off, when I just think about it from a pure sports perspective and the kind of guys I root for, I root for guys like that.
And we are not exempt. Eagles fans are not exempt. All you got to do is roll back a couple years and jump on YouTube and jump on your 97.5 and your WIP, and you listen to some of the hate and vitriol that Jalen Hurts was getting when they drafted him.
Mm.
Especially that soon after what Carson Wentz had done.
Yeah, it was, to your point, that was a very interesting window in time, because I think it was a combination of factors. I think people was confused. Let me speak for myself. When we drafted Jalen Hurts, my initial reaction was, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand it. But then,
that was a valid point of view.
Right. Now, once the pick is already settled in, because that same night, even with all that trepidation, I went on Bleacher Report, because that was around the time Bleacher Report, I think they still do it. Bleacher Report sells like their merch for higher profile draftees. They sell they literally have cultivated merch each year for like some of the most high profile, some of the most prominent guys in the draft. So in the 2020 draft, I bought Jalen Hurts' merch from Bleacher Report right after we drafted him. Even through all that trepidation. In the 2021 draft, I bought Devontae Smith's merch off of the Bleacher Report merch store. So like, that's something I did. But nonetheless, before I get too far off, through all that trepidation, through me having a question, like, we just paid Carson all this money. He's a franchise guy. You draft a quarterback in the second round. I don't really understand it. I'm a little confused about what your goal is here. But then, once it settled in, I said to myself, I get it. The backup quarterback market exploded that year.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill got a major contract. Andy Dalton got a crazy contract to play backup. And the Philadelphia Eagles at that time.
Was that when Andy Dalton was went to Carolina?
Yes.
Yeah.
And at that time, or was it the Cowboys? I think it was the Cowboys.
I can't remember.
I can tell you right now. I got the thing open. Andy Dalton, that was in 2020. That was when he went to Dallas.
Okay.
He was in Dallas for that one season. So the backup quarterback market kind of took a jump. Taysom Hill kind of threw a monkey wrench in all of it, right? So then the Eagles said to themselves, okay. And that was also coming off of the Josh McCown Seattle game.
Mm-hmm.
And how Carson got hurt again. So you just paid this guy. He got hurt again. His first playoff game, he got hurt again.
Right. Josh McCown limped out of that game.
Yeah, and Josh McCown gave him a fighting chance.
Yeah, he did.
He gave him a fighting chance. So the Eagles said
he was on the couch like 3 weeks earlier or something like that, wasn't he?
Right. He said he tore his hamstring off the bone. So
he was not in shape at all.
He was not. So at that point, Eagles said to themselves, okay, we had a shot in this game with Josh McCown. Yes, Carson is our franchise, but we got to have a backup quarterback that can at least make things happen either with his legs, just give us a fighting chance, do something unique, something creative on the football field that just gives us a fighting chance, adds a +1 to the even as a backup, be a +1. And
to that point, do you think we're gonna give up on Tanner McKee?
That's a good question. Tanner McKee isn't mobile.
Correct.
Granted, he's accurate.
He's accurate.
He has really good ball placement.
But who's we got DTR. Is DTR accurate?
I honestly, I think he's just. I'm not even paying him no mind. With all due respect to him. So like, Eagles said to themselves, we gotta get a guy that has talent and we can develop behind Carson Wentz. That's why they drafted him, a cheap backup option that gave you a +1 option in case Carson got hurt. They gave you a chance, something to be excited about. So at that point, things went how it went, and Carson falls off the cliff, falls out of favor. He gets benched, and then Jalen Hurts comes in and does his thing, and it's just one of those things. Like, I can't like look at the situation and say to myself, the Eagles did the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
I don't think they did the wrong thing at all. And like we talked about, like I gotta be able to root for guys that everything I love Jalen Hurts for. I gotta be able to root for guys, or at least acknowledge and respect guys that are getting about similar means.
Yeah. Yeah. It I remember was it Devontae Smith where they said no, it was not. It wasn't D Smith. It was somebody else where they were talking about from the moment Jalen Hurts was in camp, they knew he was different. Was that Smith?
DeShaun Jackson. DeShaun Jackson. He said he was on the sideline and he was talking to Howie, and he said, "Yo, this kid, something about him. Something about him."
So
like Hurts definitely got a lot of hate for being drafted here, but I think a reasonable person that really took a step back and really looked at the situation, they also were like, it makes financial sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the back of their minds, Howie and Jeffrey were like, we don't know if this guy Carson's going to make it. They paid him though.
Right.
And a lot of people feel like, well, you paid him. I mean, but like, yeah, you paid him, but that was prior to that season. Then things went how it went.
The expectations were different.
Yeah, and look, he made it to the playoffs. Like he didn't have a single receiver that had over five. He didn't have a single wide receiver that had over 500 yards. Like he did something very unique. Over 4,000 yards passing, without a single wide receiver over 500 yards. His leading receiver was Zach Ertz. Like it was definitely astonishing. He did something very unique. He got us into the playoffs on the back end. He won that run against the division. Greg Ward had popped up. You know what I mean? So like he did something unique, but then. And he finally was healthy all year. Then he gets hurt in the playoff game. If I'm a GM.
Was that the Jadeveon Clowney hit?
Yeah. If I'm a GM, how can I not start to hedge my bet after that point?
You got to.
How can I not?
It does Carson Wentz. Is Carson Wentz the catalyst for Howie's change and how he drafted? Is he the catalyst?
That's an interesting question.
And side note, this is my own personal opinion, but very similar to Antonio Brown after that Vontaze Burfict hit. In my opinion, Carson Wentz was never the same after he took that blow to the back of the head by Jadeveon Clowney. I think that head injury was a lot more serious than people realize, because that hit, that's when he started acting different. After that hit with Antonio Brown, that's when he started acting different. And there are studies that show people that have been in like major car accidents and head trauma, personality change. Just my opinion.
I think prior to that, people already had a vibe about him. But to our guy Green Weeman's point, I don't know if Carson Wentz was the exact catalyst, but I think it doesn't help when you draft Jalen Reagor as well. I don't know if I could just point. I don't know if I could just point to Carson, because Carson in year 2, helped you get the number 1 seed, and Carson was a very good. Like I would never say Carson wasn't a good quarterback. Carson was a good quarterback, but then he would just have these moments where he would just like turn into
Carson was the truth, dude.
Which was weird to me. It was very
and
weird.
Jalen Reagor was the first time in a long time where I was like, I've seen something that I've never seen before. When you around sports for long enough, you think you've seen it all. And then when Mike Leach, I believe Mike Leach was on WIP, and they were asking him about Jalen Reagor and what he said, I was like, did he just throw his own player under the bus? Like, it was not a endorsement whatsoever. And I was like, I thought I'd seen everything. Thought I'd seen everything. And ever since that day, I was like, ooh, Jalen Reagor, he got some baggage with him. And
yeah,
it proved to be true.
Yeah.
It proved to be true, man.
And there was the moment, if you ask me, the moment Jalen Hurts lost trust in him, it was Devontae Smith's rookie year.
Yeah.
And it was the Giants game. And I'm not gonna pretend Jalen Hurts had a great game either, but they had a chance to win it.
Yeah.
And
you got to take advantage of the opportunities when you get them.
Right. And Jalen trusted Reagor on a pass at the end zone.
Yeah.
Put it in his hands.
That was on target.
It was on target. It hit Reagor in his hands.
Yeah.
And it bounced off his.
Couldn't come up with it.
Like, Jalen was like, dog. When I saw, I've never seen Jalen. Jalen doesn't really react to much.
He rolled his eyes at him.
When that situation happened, all he could do was just fall down to his knees, or like fall down and fall down and just like put his
Like
hands
Chris
on
Jones
his knees.
did in the Super Bowl.
Like just put his hands on his knees, and Milata, all he could do was just pat him on the back, say, "Bro, you good, you good."
Yeah.
He threw a
Just
perfect ball. It was a jump
threw a
ball,
perfect
but it was
ball.
perfect.
Yeah. Nah,
It was perfect.
what's the rule? What's the rule when you at the pro level? If you
got
get
two
your
hands
hands
on
on it, you are expected to catch it.
You get two hands on it. He threw it.
Because if
And
Jalen would have
Devontae was-
overthrew it, if Jalen would have overthrew it or shortchanged it, or if it had been a bad throw, a duck, anything, it'd have been all on Jalen.
Mhm.
So nope, he had every opportunity to catch that ball. The ball was where it was supposed to be. You got hands on it, and you a first round pick.
Mhm.
I expect you to come up with that ball.
And Devontae was pissed that game.
He was pissed.
I remember that. He walked off the field hot.
He was pissed.
Because Devontae was like, I'm open. Devontae, when you watch the film back, you see Devontae open.
Open. Yep.
You see him, but
Yep.
I think when he came open, the ball was like Jalen Hurts was already, he made his decision. So it was nonetheless though, when you think about how Howie has drafted and how the decisions he's made in the past, how they influence the present, you have no choice but to give him the utmost respect. But I think it also needs to be noted that most GMs don't survive some of the things he's been through.
Correct. And then now you got to go up another level. That's all on Jeffrey Lurie.
Exactly.
And I will be
believing in his people.
Man, I will be a fan of Jeffrey Lurie. And I'm saying that's on nothing but my personal experience with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was my 1 year with the Eagles, and I tell that one story all the time when he came in the locker room and shook my hand and knew my name where he shouldn't have. And that just, to me, that just let me know, like, this dude is trying to do something different. He respects everybody, treat everybody like a man, because the other Norman Brayman didn't do that shit. And it makes a difference when you want to be somewhere. And now you got the house to go with it. Now, when you walk into NovaCare, and I find it funny. I don't know if we started the trend, but I guess I can say I noticed it, and now everybody else does it. But I'm going to guess that the Eagles didn't start the trend, but nevertheless, just the fact that everybody that signs with the Eagles, they get that one produced shot where they're at the desk and they got the video board in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to be in a situation where your facilities can produce something like that, like, that's the norm now. And especially somebody coming from the vet and what that used to look like to what we got now, first class across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the facility where, when our new signees get out the limo and they walking in the door, you got that wow factor. And we didn't have that with the vet. And people really don't understand how much of a difference psychologically that makes to the people you bringing in the door. Like, I want to be here. I had that feeling when I went and worked out for Carolina back in the day. And this was before Carolina was, we were going into Carolina's inaugural season. And I went down there, it was me and a bunch of guys worked out, and they took us in the office, and they hadn't even built a stadium yet. They just had a mock-up. But you saw what they were trying to do, and it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this. Nice city, downtown was clean. They building up downtown around the state, like they were doing everything right. And I was like, this is the place where you want to be. And we've got that now in Philadelphia, and a lot of the young fans really don't understand how bad it was at the vet with Norman Brayman, all of them coat tight ears and all of that type of stuff. Most people don't understand.
That's even before my time, But I try my best to lean on guys like you and just really believe it when you say it, how bad things were. And I even hear about the history of how, Randall Cunningham, he had no offensive line. He was making magic happen with no offensive line. Like they did not invest in that offensive line at all. They just thought that defense would carry him everywhere.
And then the guys that they got was, I remember my rookie year was when they drafted Antone Davis, and just didn't. To me, Antone was one of them dudes that lived like Tarzan and played like Jane. And it's not that he wasn't strong. He's strong as an ox. He was 6'5", I think it was. He was a big dude. But to me, that was a personality thing.
The mentality.
Yeah, he wasn't that dog.
Yeah.
He didn't have that Mailata or that Lane Johnson type attitude.
That Landon Dickerson, just like that viciousness, that ferociousness. Yeah.
He just didn't have it.
Let's get to these we got 3 super chats waiting in the wrap. Let's get to these. These will help us get back on track too. So S Blunt with the super chat. Thank you, big dog. He says problem is he never got back to his 2017 form. Talking about Carson
Wentz,
and that's a good point. That's a very good point. But there were moments where we thought to ourselves, okay, if he can, for example, the 2019 season, when things were kind of up and down, and then they had that opportunity to make the playoffs, and they went on that run. I said, okay, this could be a turning point for Carson in his career.
That was a pivotal point.
You got to the playoffs. He wins this game. He wins this game in a wild card round. Me personally, I said to myself, if he wins this game, I could live with whatever result because I need him to get through a playoff game and win one, so he can have that off his back. Win one.
It's interesting you say it like that because you can say the exact same thing with Jalen, except he won. Everybody comes to that razor's edge, and can you pass through, or do you fall back? And Carson Wentz fell back.
Yeah, you're right.
Donovan McNabb fell back. Couldn't get over that hump.
Yeah, some guys rise, some guys fall. Some guys embrace that struggle, and some guys in both situations, you talking about a quarterback who had arguably more physical traits than the one we got that got us over the hump. Which talent is, you need talent, of course, but
leadership.
In some instances, talent can be very much overrated. In some instances,
everybody thought Jalen saying, "I will win the way we need to win." Everybody thought they look at that as cliche, and it's like, unless you've been in that situation, because I can go back, and this is where I pull out my old school card. I can go back and tell people, look up Tommy Frazier, at Nebraska. Look at what was his name? What was the name for the quarterback from Oklahoma?
Wait, from
back in the day from Oklahoma. Tommy Frazier played at Nebraska, but there was another quarterback that went to Oklahoma where they ran like a triple option, but he was nasty, and he was unstoppable. And I can't. Somebody in the chat will remember his name.
Are we talking 90s, 80s? Who we talking about?
80s and early 90s.
Okay, 80s, early 90s. Jamel Holloway. Okay, yeah, he was there from 86 to 88.
Jamel Holloway was so nasty and so unstoppable, but that was at the time where he was either going to make it to the league as a running back or nothing. Him being a quarterback was never on the table because the way he played, but he was unstoppable.
Right. Yeah, man.
And fast forward to the day till you get a little bit of both. And I played against Doug Flutie. I saw Doug Flutie for myself before he got to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Made a point to go over when he was playing with the Argos and I was with Hamilton Ticats. And I made sure to go find him on the field and shake his hand and tell him, like, yo, bro, I don't give a damn what anybody say. You should be in the league. He was that nasty. But when he finally got a shot in Buffalo, they didn't know what to do with him. Charlie Ward is another one. Thank you, Luther. And I'm saying all that to say there's plenty of them that have had that type of ability, but the league wasn't ready for it yet. And finally, Jalen Hurts is kind of putting everything into place. Like, hey, just because you 6'5", don't mean you know how to win games. Just because you can throw the ball 100 yards in the air doesn't mean you can win games.
Knowing how to winning games is a skill.
It's a skill.
Being able to just be in those situations, just knowing how to play within yourself.
Thank you. Knowing how to do the right thing at the right time. You're still gonna make mistakes, but when it comes to crunch time,
or games that matter,
Because just like I use the example in the film room, you have a game, you have a terrific game, but you make one mistake. In the film room, a good coach is going to run that mistake back 30 times. Yeah, you did all of this good stuff, but I'm going to run this one mistake just to let you know ain't nobody perfect. And then you get the flip side of that in today's era where everybody concentrates on the fluffy and the good, and everybody wants a highlight tape. If you study and tape, you never watch a highlight tape because a highlight tape only shows you the ups. It never shows you the downs. That's why Kansas City got their teeth kicked in. Because everybody's going on what Mahomes did, just ignoring the fact that your offensive line is trash and our defensive line is stellar. You effed around and found out, though, didn't you?
Absolutely.
So you can't do that.
Yeah. Green Wingman with the super chat says, when Hurts got drafted, my annoyance wasn't towards him, but how Howie Roseman's failures of drafting skill position early in the draft to help the current quarterback. That's interesting. And I know we only got like maybe 10 minutes left.
We can rock a little longer. I'm good. We can rock a little longer.
That's an interesting point because I've blamed Howie Roseman for that quite often, right? Not really investing in that offense for Carson Wentz early on. And I don't know if that's entirely true. Because 2017, okay, Carson gets drafted in 2016, right? He gets drafted in 2016. The season goes how it goes. And I think the Eagles went 8 and 7 or something. No, 8 and 8 or like 7 and 9. Like they didn't make the playoffs, right? Year 2, Howie signs Alshon Jeffrey, who was the hottest wide receiver on the market at the time.
At the time, yep.
Let's. I know we feel how we feel now, but we got to start really paying attention to not only the player but also when the player was received. They went and signed Alshon Jeffrey the year after he came off of the suspension because remember he got suspended his founding year in Chicago for the PEDs. He was the hottest.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, people forget Alshon. I think he was entering his final year of his contract with Chicago, and then he got suspended, and I think he was a free agent that year. I think he was a free agent. Regardless, the Eagles brought in Alshon Jeffrey, who was the hottest receiver on the market at the time. He was the hottest. Let's call that what it is. 7 and 9. Thank you, Dank. They were 7 and 9. They brought in Alshon Jeffrey. They also brought in Torrey Smith, who was known as being one of the best deep threats in football at the time. I think Torrey Smith was coming off of his time in Baltimore.
Yes.
When they won the Super Bowl, right?
And a better veteran leader than anybody ever expected.
He was a veteran leader, and he was one of the most well-respected deep threats in football.
Correct.
Right? And keep in mind, you still had, keep in mind you still had Nelson Aguilar on his roster. Now, Nelson Aguilar, he wasn't a first-round pick, but he immediately fell to the number 3 spot once you brought in Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. So you got Alshon Jeffrey, at that time, who was a bona fide number 1, who was killing shit in Chicago. Torrey Smith, who's a deep threat, a good number 2. Then you had Nelson Aguilar at number 3, right? Then they signed LeGarrette Blount that season. Yeah,
LeGarrette Blount was nasty.
LeGarrette Blount was one of the hottest running backs on the market. He was coming off of that crazy run with the Patriots and one of the best power backs in the league at the time.
Yep.
They traded for Jay Ajayi.
Yeah, and Jay Ajayi had a good year with his jacked up knees. Yeah, but he still produced.
Yeah, and they remember they drafted Corey Clement, who was an effective number 3 running back who was capable in the passing game.
Absolutely, homeboy, South Jersey's own.
And they had Zach Ertz in that roster as well. You still have Brent Selleck. So that's the 2017 season, right? Then we could take it a step further. You still had Alshon Jeffrey, but he got hurt. They also had Darren Sproles, but he got hurt.
Yep. Darren Sproles hurt, man.
So then let's just talk about it via the draft now, right? After that 2017 season, they didn't have a first-round pick. Because remember, they traded to get Carson. They didn't have a first-round pick in 2018. So you know what they did? They drafted the best tight end in Dallas Goedert in the second round. So they got him another weapon at tight end.
Yep.
Because they know he likes throwing to the tight ends. They got him a tight end. Let's go to the 2019 draft, right? 2019 draft. They got him a left tackle to protect him. because he was getting hurt. They got him a left tackle to protect him and Andre Dillard. Now, we didn't know Andre Dillard was going to be soft. We didn't know that. We didn't know that. But you think you drafted one of the top ranked offensive linemen, one of the top ranked offensive tackles in football or in college football at the time. I think he went to Washington. He was known as being one of the best pass blockers in the draft. You draft him at left tackle to protect your guy. Then you draft a running back in the second round, Miles Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
So you got him another weapon at running back out of Penn State. And then you draft him a wide receiver in the second round, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who was at the time the best contested catch, the best contested pass catcher in college football at the time, because he went to Stanford, I think.
And we didn't use him right.
But again, we didn't know he was going to be soft.
We didn't know.
See, you have to think about, although the result was the result, we got to think about the intent and the thinking behind it. You got to think about the intent. They drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to kind of be their new Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, and it just didn't work out. So in
2019, they get him a left tackle. So in 2018, they get him a tight end. In 2019, they get him a left tackle, a running back, and a wide receiver. Early rounds, by the way.
Yeah.
Early rounds. We're talking second rounds in first round. Then 2020, they draft Jalen Reagor in the first round. Again, at the time, we didn't know he was going to be a dud, but also we were screaming for Justin Jefferson.
Right.
But they drafted Jalen Reagor instead. Now, maybe they got the evaluation wrong.
Ooh, when you say that even that hurts.
maybe they got the evaluation wrong, but the intent was to give this brother weapons.
Yeah.
And even further in that 2020 draft, they drafted John Hightower at wide receiver in the 5th, and they drafted Quez Watkins in the 6th. Not the highest of draft picks, but they're adding wide receivers to the room. They're trying to give him more weapons. So again, I know we don't respect the result. We know they got the evaluation wrong, but can I really say Howie didn't try to get him weapons or get him more assets on the offense? I don't know if I can say that at this point with confidence.
Technically, you can't, because at the end of the day, when we get good draft picks, he knocked it out of the park. This was a situation where he was still trying to get good draft picks. He just whiffed, and
he was trying to outthink the room a little bit. So again, we got the evaluation wrong.
He took
how we had to learn from that. He had to learn from that. And unfortunately, Carson Wentz was the crash test dummy, unfortunately.
Correct. And if that would not have happened, we would not be where we are today.
Exactly. Now, we know Alshon is not A.J. Brown. We know Jalen Reagor is not Devontae Smith or Torrey Smith. We know he's not Devontae. We know that. You know what I'm saying? We get that. But offensive line-wise, the Eagles have always invested in that properly. And they battled injuries on the back end of that 2019-2020 season. They had injuries. So a lot of things went wrong. But I can't sit here and say Howie didn't try to get him weapons.
No, everybody's trying to get weapons, man.
If anything, he got evaluations wrong. I'll completely concede that he got all the he got the evaluations wrong. But he tried to get him weapons. He tried.
When you look at our big misses, you look at Arcega-Whiteside, you look at Jalen Reagor. To me, that's somebody that's really not doing their homework. Because even when the picks were made, even when in the midst of all of the homework and others available, I respect it, because for the most part, this is when scouts are saying, hey, this is our guy, and we're going to stick to what we found, what our research is, and what our opinion is, and we're going to stick to it. We can criticize them for that. However, fast forward until the last 5 years, and that same mindset has produced.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it all comes back to, you got to take the good with the bad. And lucky for us that the past, I guess, 6 seasons now, we've had more good than bad since 2017 going forward.
Yeah, and he still won a Super Bowl in the Carson Wentz era.
Correct.
Still. So Can I say the Carson Wentz era was a failure? No, I can't.
Absolutely not. Because Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate.
Personally, like I know some people say, no, Carson Wentz, that was a dud. We whipped on that pick, but the best, the highest, the best of Carson Wentz allowed us to get a Super Bowl.
Correct. And the one thing you can't say about Howie Roseman right now, Howie Roseman is the best at drafting and finding backups, because we got 2 Super Bowls out of him. 3 actually, 3 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowl appearances with 2 wins from backups. 2 wins.
Yeah, and I mean, Hurts, and when they were backups at the time, like when you brought him in, but obviously Hurts was a starter when he won it, but and when he went. But I understand what you're saying. Like the guys that won them ultimately were brought in here to support the starting quarterback, the franchise quarterback. And it is fascinating that both of Carson Wentz's backups have won Super Bowls with this team. That is fascinating to me. I don't know if there's any quarterback in history that's had to experience the ego death that Carson Wentz has had to face in his career. Is there any quarterback in NFL history that has faced the type of ego death that Carson Wentz has had to face? Because think about it. He was on the sideline when Jalen Hurts put that Lombardi trophy on his shoulders.
Maybe Drew Bledsoe.
But that was one guy. That was one guy, Tom Brady. That was one guy.
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of when your replacement wins the ring. The only thing I can think of is Tom Brady, Jeff Hostetler back in the day with the Giants.
We'll break that down for me, because who came in after him? Phil Simms?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other ones.
And Phil Simms won 2 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? Phil Simms wasn't the most talented quarterback in the league.
Nah, not even close. But that was a different time, though. That was a different time.
Different time.
Because ultimately neither was Joe Montana. Joe Montana had the team, but Joe Montana was a savant with the X's and O's, just like Tom Brady. Except Joe Montana wasn't 6'4" with the golden arm. Joe Montana had an average arm at best, but he knew the offenses, and he was a good competitor and a phenomenal leader. And oh, by the way, you had the best wide receiver to ever play the game over there on your side. So,
did you know the Cowboys almost had him, Jerry Rice?
Mm-hmm.
They almost had him.
Almost don't count.
The 49ers traded up 1 pick ahead of them. I was up one night watching. You know how NFL does like the top 10s?
Yeah.
It was the top 10 biggest trades in NFL history. And
wasn't Philly in there with was it trades? Was that the one where they were talking about when Philly wanted to draft Russell Wilson?
No, not that one. No. This like they talked about. Oh man, like I wish I could remember all the OG's names, but they brought up how LaDainian Tomlinson, who originally had the Chargers had the first pick, and then they traded back.
Is that the Eli Manning year?
It was the Michael Vick year.
Okay.
It was the Michael Vick year. Michael Vick was the highest. Atlanta and the Chargers basically swapped first round picks. Atlanta traded up, San Diego traded back, and San Diego ended up drafting LaDainian Tomlinson, and Atlanta ended up drafting Michael Vick. Like that whole top 10 was about the I think it was the craziest trades in NFL history, or the most one-sided. I don't know if it was one-sided, but
yeah.
But they tapped into some crazy trades that happened in NFL history, and for the most part, most of those trades had occurred in like the 2000s. Right. So it was an older episode for sure.
Back when the people were still so enamored with the check boxes, man. How you think Drew Brees got to New Orleans?
That was one of them, actually. That was actually on the list.
Yeah,
that was on the list. You know, so
guess what? Phillip Rivers and I mean, we could go down the list of all the people that.
There was another guy on the list, the Tony Dorsett move.
So when he went to Denver?
No, Tony Dorsett when he went to the Cowboys.
Oh.
When he Tony Dorsett was when he was drafted, there was a team that could have drafted Tony Dorsett, but they said, nah. I think it was was he? I'm trying to remember.
Here's the thing though, because you gotta take this into consideration.
Was it Seattle? Seattle could have had Tony Dorsett. And they decided to trade out of the pick or something, and then the Cowboys drafted him, and that was the year Tony Dorsett won. I think he won Rookie of the Year, his first year, and they won the Super Bowl his rookie year.
Right, but think about this though. And let's bring it to kind of in our times. Does Emmitt Smith have the career does he have his career if he's not in Dallas? If he's not running behind Larry Allen and that beast of an offensive line that the Cowboys had in the 90s?
That's a very good question, man.
It's all about who you're drafted by and when you're drafted, because the situation could be totally different. Totally different. Do we win in 22 if our defense looked like it did this past season?
Absolutely.
It's okay if we had the same players
honestly,
on the field.
Honestly, I don't think it would have been close.
What happens if do we win this game if Jonathan Gannon is coach?
Is the DC? Oh, man.
Exactly. If you got a pause, here's another one.
Gannon. He didn't make any adjustments in that game.
The only situation that I've ever seen, at least, and again, this is my opinion, where I was like, it didn't matter. When Dallas won that Super Bowl after they fired Jimmy Johnson with Barry Switzer. That was the only Super Bowl they won after the salary cap got installed. I was like, it didn't matter. Ray Charles could have been coaching that team. Dallas was that good.
Yeah, and to your point, remember the salary cap got installed in 94.
Yep.
And they won that Super Bowl in the 95-96 season. So
that was the beginning of the Dallas Kool-Aid.
That was the beginning of the demise of that franchise, because remember that core was already installed pre-salary cap.
Already installed. How you get rid of a Hall of Fame coach like Jimmy Johnson is beyond me, unless your ego gets involved.
Right. So the salary cap didn't really stop you from building that 95-96 Super Bowl roster because it was already there.
Yeah.
Now the salary cap's involved. You lose Troy, you lose Emmett, right? Those guys retire or move to different teams. I think Emmett ended his career in Arizona, right? So,
yes.
So now the salary cap is involved. The Cowboys can't figure it out. And I said to myself, I get it now. I know why the Cowboys haven't really won since the salary cap's been installed. I get it. Because again, they did win one technically a year after the salary cap got involved, but that was with a pre-salary cap core. So I say to myself, I understand why they haven't won. They can't do math. They don't understand how to balance a checkbook.
I still think it's got more to do with the guy they had running the show.
Of course, he can't do math.
Well,
he can't evaluate talent.
But more to the point,
I've had talent in every year.
Jimmy Johnson was the running the ship.
Yeah,
and then what happened after that? You got another guy who was of the same caliber with Bill Parcells. And what happened with that? Ego got in the way. With Bill Parcells famous, if you want me to cook the food, at least let me buy the groceries. So in my opinion, it's not necessarily about the salary cap. It's more about who does the best job in evaluating talent. Jimmy Johnson did, and Bill Parcells did. Both of them had track records that you could not argue. And ego got in the way.
But here's the thing, right? To your point, right? When you just look at it from a pure talent evaluation perspective, the Cowboys have had talent in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Talent. The most talent they've had has been during the Dak Prescott era. And you can make an argument. The Tony Romo era, they had a lot of talent too. I think they still had Dez. They had Roy Williams. Remember?
Yeah.
They had Miles Austin, who was cooking the league at the time.
They had old boy from in the secondary.
They had Marion Barber at running back. Yeah, I remember those years. DeMeco Ryans. Oh, it was DeMeco Murray. DeMarco Murray.
He's a running back.
DeMarco Murray, they had him too.
He came up here for half a season.
Yeah, like the Cowboys have had talent in the 21st century. They've had talent. There was a point where Dak Prescott had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, Jason Witten, Ezekiel Elliott with that offensive line. And that defense was actually playing well at the time.
It's all about the person running the show, man.
And they still can't win. Dak Prescott has 2 playoff wins. He's like,
I still find it very difficult to convince people that the dynamic in the locker room is more important than sometimes who's the coach, who's the GM, who you drafted. That dynamic in the locker room, how these boys relate to each other, that can overcome almost anything. Because if you have a united front as a team, you can go to talk to a coach as a team and be like, hey man, what you doing ain't working. So we have found this out, and I love it for the fact that everybody who shit on Jalen Hurts, everybody who shit on Nick Sirianni, who shit on Howie Roseman at one point in time, or just shit on the Eagles because we was the Eagles. And they found out the hard way that just because you might have a little bit more money and a little bit more cachet in the spaces in the media doesn't mean you got what it takes to handle business on the field where it matters.
Yeah, and my last point about the Cowboys, because one of my Cowboy subscribers, his name is Texas Boy. He said, he said the defense was not good. Okay, let's really break this down, because I love when people do this, because I've actually done a science on this Dak Prescott era. I've done a science on it, and I'm always prepared when people talk about it. So in 2016, when Dak was drafted, the Dallas Cowboys had the number 5, had the fifth ranked offense, and they had the 16th ranked defense in terms of yards, right? Because you rate offenses by yards and scoring. So in terms of yards, that 2016 offense was ranked 5th, and that defense was ranked 16th. Okay, they was giving up yards, but when it comes to scoring, that offense was ranked 5th, and that defense was ranked 8th. So although they was giving up yards, they kept points off the board. So arguably, if you want to average it out, they probably had a top 10 defense. They had a top 10 defense in 2016 in terms of scoring, right? Because at the end of the day, yards don't win the game, points do. So we can keep it on point. We can keep it on points if you want. In 2017, offense is ranked 14th, defense is ranked 6th in terms of yards. In terms of scoring, the offense is ranked 14th, defense is ranked 9th. So that's 2 top 10 defenses so far in terms of scoring. 2016, 2017. 2018, offense is ranked 22nd, defense is ranked 8th in terms of yards. And as far as scoring, offense is ranked 21st, defense is ranked 7th. So again, that's three defenses in a row with top 10 in scoring. 3 defenses in a row, top 10 in scoring. Let's get to 2019. The number 1 ranked offense in terms of yards, the 9th defense in terms of yards. And when it comes to scoring, the 6th offense when it comes to scoring, and the 9th defense when it comes to scoring. That's 4 top 10 defenses when it comes to scoring, keeping points off the board. So I can go on and on about this. But I won't. You can do the research on your own. The Cowboys have no excuse. None. That defense has kept points off the board. Now, when you get to the playoffs, that's a different conversation. Nonetheless,
very different conversation.
Nonetheless, man, super chat here. Alex, he says, per Jeff Kerr, Philly will have 8+ days of rest before facing KC, Minnesota, Green Bay, and the Los Angeles Chargers and Buffalo. They're all road games. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I will say, sometimes you do get too many days off can be detrimental.
That's true.
You want to keep the rhythm and consistency. So,
that's very true. And then Kaka Corsi says, Tone, who could probably win a starting job that was a day 3 pick? That's a good question. If I had to pick,
who were the day 3 picks?
Ty Robinson and below. So that's Ty Robinson, Smile Mondon, APR. Or starting
Robinson and Smile Mondon.
That's what I was about to say. Because I think Ty Robinson, you got to go through Moro Jomo, got to go through Jordan Davis. Like
he's down in the depth chart, and he got some guys in front of him.
But Smile Mondon, on the other hand, you got Jihaad Campbell. You got Jihaad Campbell, who's likely going to start the season on the pup list. And then you got Kobe Dean, who's definitely going to start the season on the pup list. So Smile Mondon, his only competition really is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And that's not to take anything from Trotter Jr., but I think Trotter Jr. has a leg up because he's a year deeper into the system. But Trotter Jr. is a guy that's going to fight for that role. And Samal Mandan is a guy that has an opportunity to win that role. We'll see how it turns out.
Right.
So yeah, that's my guy, Samal Mandan for sure. APR, he has an uphill battle as well. You got Azeez Ojulari in front of you. You got Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt, Bryce Huff, who's still making a lot of money. So Josh Uche, that's a steeper hill to climb if you ask me. But I think he's going to get snapped.
Because they're gonna try to give Bryce Huff as many opportunities
especially if he's on a roster when the season starts. They're definitely going to try
to justify that money.
But I think that leash is short though, because he was unplayable. He was unplayable in the playoffs. But I think the NFL. When I think about the schedule, Marcus, this will be our final. This will be our final talk here, and we'll close this thing out. I appreciate you for making extra time, man. I think the NFL made a mistake when it came to the schedule. Here's why. They think this Eagles team is going to be. See, they're trying to catch them slipping, and I'm willing to argue this Eagles team, this defense in particular, because they're younger actually. This Eagles defense, in my opinion, is more prepared to start the season this go around than they were, or than they were in 2024. Because most of this roster, most of this defense, they're a year deeper into that system. They know what the expectations are.
And Vic's been here for a year.
Vic's been here for a year. They got the playoff pedigree. They got the championship, the Super Bowl DNA. That stuff trickles down. These young guys watched that Eagles run, and they saw how that defense played. A standard has been set. You know what I'm saying? Guys are a year wiser. I just think this defense and the coaching staff, the entire defensive coaching staff has returned. Clint Hurt is back. Christian Parker is back, who coaches the DBs. Roy Anderson is back, who coaches the corner solely. You got Joe Casper back, who coaches safeties, right? You got Jeremiah Washburn and Bobby King, who are back, that coach off-ball linebackers and traditional linebackers, right? You got this whole defensive coaching staff back to develop these guys, and they have a proven track record of getting guys to where they need to be. I think this defense starts off stronger than it did in 2024.
I agree, and the one thing that I think people just don't talk about is that at most of our key positions on defense, a lot of these rooks coming in got teammates, guys that they played with in college or that they know of, and you got some familiarity. And the one thing that helps rookies settle in and understand how to be professionals more than anything else is if you got a friend or a former teammate that is already on the team.
That's true.
That takes a lot, not all, but a lot of the stress out of training camp.
It does. You're right about that. You're so right about that. So you guys,
we in good shape, bro.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're in good shape as well. I appreciate all of you guys for locking in on the content the way you guys have. It's been phenomenal. You guys are fantastic. And last point about this, my boy Texas boy, he says a washed Tom Brady destroyed the Eagles the year before in the playoffs. Well, let's redefine washed here. In 2021, Tom Brady played in all 17 games. He went 13-4. He led the league in completions and pass attempts. He completed 67% of his passes, led the league in passing yards, and led the league in passing touchdowns. That's washed, Maji.
And I'm not like
that's washed. Texas boy. I know you're a Cowboys fan, and I know you get emotional about these conversations. You my man. You always show love, but you got to make sure you come with the facts. There's nothing washed about leading the league in completions, leading the league in pass attempts, leading the league in passing yards, leading the league in passing touchdowns. There's nothing washed about that when you go 13-4. Nothing washed about that, big dog. You got to know what you're talking about. You can't just react.
Let's give you the benefit of the doubt. And that stat was 100% true when we went to the Super Bowl both times. So
come on now.
Don't cherry pick stats to fit your narrative. I mean, you can, you shouldn't, but at the end of the day, Tone, you know me. Stats don't matter. What matters is what's going to happen in week one.
They're not listening.
The only thing that matters.
2022, he was washed. 2021, you got to listen, Texas boy. We lost to him in 2021. You got to listen. You can't be desperate to prove a point when you're not listening. 2022 was his last year. 2022 is the year he was washed. We didn't play him in 2022. 2022 is when the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl. We gotta know what we're talking about. 2021 is when Jalen Hurts and those guys lost in the first round in the wild card to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went 13-4 that year in 2021. He led the league in completions, led the league in pass attempts, led the league in passing yards, led the league in passing touchdowns. What are we talking about? We got to be honest.
He trolling.
Of course he's trolling. I get it. That's all you have when you're a Cowboys fan. All you can do is troll. All you can do is live under the bridge. You don't know what sunlight looks like. You don't know what sunlight looks like. You don't know what success looks. How old are you, Texas boy?
I gotta think of a new term for that. When they trolling, but they Cowboys fans, we got to think of a new adjective for that.
Man, we'll come.
Should we just say he jonesing?
Jonesing. That's funny. That's funny.
Jonesing. Man, let me get out of here, bro. I gotta go.
Hey, listen, y'all. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. Y'all know we always got to give y'all that Eagles Cowboys hate before we get out of here. It comes with the territory. God. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to both channels. Subscribe to Pro Fan Talk. My man, Coach Markus, does a phenomenal job. He just recently passed 7,000 subs on YouTube. So make sure you guys continue to support him. He's doing an amazing job covering the WNBA, covering the NFL, your Philadelphia Eagles. He does an amazing job covering the industry itself. Just a phenomenal content creator, and I love what he does. And I also love what we do here at the Eagles offseason show. Make sure you guys also lock in with me, Tony DeShields II, at Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. Once again, you guys have been phenomenal. This has been your Eagles offseason show. Markus, spin that track, man.
Go Birds.
In the city of Philly, where the birds take flight, Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Nolan and Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Broad Street lights, dashing like a running back, hitting every play. 9 guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle, soaring in the sky. Nolan and Markus always standing by, bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle, soars in the sky. Nolan and Markus always standing